Revenge films.
I have an unusual amount of money in my savings because my grandfather on my mother's side was also a very wealthy man. Even though there are ups and downs, I also receive about $3,000 worth of dividends from the stocks that are under my name as well. Before getting married, I only told my boyfriend about my stocks and kept my savings inheritance situation a secret, so he thought I was just a normal working class girl. We ran a long-distance relationship at the time, so I quit my job to live with him and become a housewife. After about a year after I moved in, he suddenly said,
"How long are you just gonna sit around and do nothing?"
"You're the one who wanted me to be a housewife," I responded. I tried to keep calm, but inside, I was pretty annoyed. I mean, there were times that I was sick and couldn't do the housework, but I always put in my full effort for the most part, so it was annoying to be told that I wasn't doing anything. A few days later, we went out for drinks, and he said,
"All my coworkers' wives have jobs while doing all the housework and taking care of their children. But look at you."
"What are you trying to say?
Take a hint.
Are you trying to tell me to get a job?"
Yep.
"Alright, I'll work," I said, and he got off my back. It's not like I didn't want to work in the first place. I was happy to find a job because it's hard to make friends in a new city, especially without any children. But it was hard, being in my late 20s and newlywed in an unfamiliar city. I tried for 6 months with no success.
You still haven't found a job?
My husband would nag at me. I almost even thought about divorce. I decided that a part-time job was better than nothing and was easily able to find a position at a grocery store nearby. "I got a job at the grocery store starting this weekend," I reported. But he told me,
"Don't work at places like diners, thrift shops, grocery stores?"
His reason was that he would be embarrassed if everyone saw his wife working at that kind of place. It was annoying how he was telling me to work, then telling me not to work when I found a job. But I calmed myself down and told him, well, I just got accepted, and it would be awkward for me to go shopping if I refuse at this point. And plus, I'm still new to this town. I can't be picky about where to work. But he was stubborn about his position, and things got heated. I told him that I was hurt when he said that I was just sitting around and doing nothing. To that, his response was,
"But it's true, you know. You're like a beggar on the streets, living off of my money. You should be more thankful."
"You should have never asked me to be a housewife then. Don't you see how you're contradicting yourself?"
"I never said to be a housewife forever. Are you an idiot?"
That just made me snap. I grabbed a piece of paper and started writing. We could have lived in a company apartment, but he refused, and instead we pay $900 monthly for housing. Even though I proposed that we should shower, he insisted on taking a bath every night, which costs $150 every month for heating. $100 every month in cell phone fees, which could easily be replaced by a cheaper carrier. $400 each month to pay back his student loan. A $500 allowance that he justified by saying that he needed it to take his clients out for drinks. Add all of this up. Your monthly salary is $1,800. Wait a minute, what about food? Did you think that food just magically appears out of nowhere? Do you think I go scavenging at night for your lunch the next day? You think that we have a hot spring running through our house for your baths? Or that the bars pay for your drinks? That car you drive around every day like it's your own? That's my car, by the way. Were you under the impression that you were paying for maintenance or gasoline? Do you even know how to add? Or are you just an idiot?" I know, that was pretty mean, but I couldn't hold myself back any longer. He stood there and trembled in silence, so I kept on going. "I pay for my own insurance. I pay my own cell phone bills. And all that extra money that your salary can't cover comes out of my pockets. I knew from the beginning that your income was insufficient to support me as a housewife, so I was planning on getting a job anyways. I was managing with my pocket money for a while because you mentioned how lonely it was for you to be at home with no one around, and how you thought it was the man's duty to put the bread on the table. I never expected to be shamed like this. Listen to me. I have over $200,000 in savings and $70,000 in stocks. You have no right to call me a street burn." He looked completely shocked.
"I'm sorry. Forgive me. Please."
He tried to apologize, but I had enough. "Let me give you a taste of your own medicine. You're completely fine with your wife paying for your lifestyle. You're like a bum. You should be more thankful." I had gotten everything off my chest, so I packed up and left for my parents' house the next day. I was over him. I remembered crying on the highway home. This is why you can't trust long-distance relationships. I never saw him for who he was. After that, I hired a lawyer to file for divorce. My husband must have thought that he was going to get half of my assets as part of the settlement.
I have a right to half of her money. It's called property division.
He claimed, with a smirk on his face, but his lawyer told him,
The savings are from before your marriage, so you don't have any right to any of it.
and was shut down immediately. He didn't seem too happy about that one. I guess he thought he was going to get half, so he told all his coworkers about it.
I'm gonna be rich soon.
He told them and made empty promises to take them out for drinks and such. He was so excited that he made a new credit card and went shopping for new clothes and watches and such. He expected to be able to cover it with my money.
I thought I was gonna get a piece of that money. How dare you?
He tried blaming me, but it was none of my business. He panicked because he wasn't going to get any money for the divorce and thought that he would be able to use it if he was married to me. He went all Romeo on me.
I'm really sorry about everything. Let's try to work things out again. I need you. I won't tell you to work anymore. You can be a stay-at-home wife. Let's start from scratch.
He tried sweet-talking me, but I could tell that he just wanted the money. Are you kidding me? Not in this life or the next. I regret ever meeting you in the first place. I threatened to add compensation in the divorce, and he backed down and agreed to the divorce. I knew he was in pretty big trouble. He wasn't making enough to support his own lifestyle. He probably wouldn't be able to pay his rent and be kicked out, but even moving costs money, so he would have to borrow money. And since he only made $1,800 a month, after paying for his credit card and student loans, that would leave him with pretty much no money. Serves him right. I decided to reset my life. I found myself a stable job where I met a new man. A few years later, we got married and had children. And we live happily ever after.
My ex-wife left me with my 2-year-old daughter for her new boyfriend. Her reason for cheating was,
You don't care about the family and you come home late. My boyfriend makes more money than you and has a bright future.
that's pretty much the gist of what she said to me. The only reason I was coming home late was because I was staying late to train for a higher paying position to support the family. I was also the only one who made dinner and breakfast, and no matter how tired I was, I would take care of my daughter at night and change her diapers. But my ex-wife would leave our daughter with her parents to meet with her boyfriend. She had some nerve to say that I didn't care about the family. I may have had some fault, but there was no excuse for cheating on me. After I found out about the affair, the boyfriend's parents and my ex-wife's parents all apologized to me. But in the end, they had their own child's backs and just offered to pay me alimony to back off. Her boyfriend didn't seem to be brought up well and worked for a famous company but seemed to lack emotion. I fought for custody for a year, but the jury were traditional old men, and I ended up losing. I refrained from confronting the boyfriend to avoid any troubles in court, so all I got in the end was the $70,000 in alimony from my ex-wife and her boyfriend. The money included hush money from the boyfriend and money for taking my daughter, but the money didn't make me any happier. I lost my motivation and cried in pain every night. I couldn't stand living like that, so I gave $50,000 back for my daughter's child support, and got to see my daughter now and then in return. I got to see her a couple times a month, so I was able to watch her grow up. 3 years passed, and my ex-wife called saying that she wanted to talk about our daughter. When we met, she asked for more child support. I refused, telling her that I'd already paid $50,000. Then my ex-wife mentioned that maybe I should raise our daughter. I asked about her boyfriend abusing our daughter, and she told me that he had lost interest and was ignoring her. Not only that, "She doesn't get to buy food with my money," he would say, and wasn't feeding her properly. Honestly, I wanted to tell her that I didn't pay that $50,000 for him to be interested in my daughter, but I couldn't stand the idea of my daughter being with him any longer. So I happily accepted custody of our daughter. As we were preparing to switch custody, I hired a detective to investigate the boyfriend and found out something interesting. The boyfriend had quit his job and was unemployed for 2 years, and after the affair, he was disowned by his parents. My ex-wife was working a part-time job to make up for their lost income. Serves them well, I thought. It was probably the boyfriend's fault that the $50,000 was gone, and it probably wasn't being used for my daughter. And that's why my ex-wife had come to ask for more. I had a girlfriend at the time, but I was still worried about my daughter and kind of over the idea of marriage, so I was keeping my distance. When I was going to take custody of my daughter, she came to mind, but my daughter was higher priority. So I asked her to break up with me. She reluctantly accepted at the time, but she messaged me a month later saying,
I've decided. I'm ready to be a mother.
I broke up with her in the first place because I didn't want to burden her. But she had decided that she wanted this, so I had no reason to say no. So we went to tell our parents. Her parents took in the situation and told us that first I was to live with my daughter. Then we were to see if my daughter could get along with my girlfriend. And finally, we were to bring our daughter to see them as often as possible. So I brought my girlfriend to meet my daughter. She took her time to think it through, so my girlfriend really tried her best to connect with my daughter. And my daughter fell in love with her quickly. Time and again, we brought her to see my girlfriend's parents. And even though they were awkward at first, they gradually accepted my daughter as their own. My daughter was a great sport about it too. She'd never had grandparents that would spoil her and called them Grandpa and Grandma, even before we got married, and they fell in love with her too. On the other hand, my ex-wife contacted me many times to see our daughter, but I told her strongly to stop being selfish and to wait until I felt it was the right time. She promised to wait and seemed calm. She was probably sick of her boyfriend, but that's none of my business anymore. I was on great terms with my daughter because I had always tried to be there for her, and she was fitting into her school well too. I couldn't continue to ignore my ex-wife, so I asked my daughter if she wanted to see her, and she said, and didn't sound too excited about it, so I used that as an excuse to prevent them from seeing each other. About 6 months later, I got married to my girlfriend, and we officially became a family. I took my daughter to see her mother after that. My daughter seemed happy to see her mother, but I hadn't forgotten how she had chosen her boyfriend over our daughter, so after a couple hours at a restaurant, I took my daughter home. My ex-wife whined about how she wanted more visiting hours, but this is what I declared to her. I have not forgiven you, or want to see you. I'm remarried and our daughter has a mother now, so don't bother us. You are her mother, so I will make time, but not while your life is messed up. Call me once you think you're fit to meet our daughter. She had no choice but to listen to me, and agreed to the terms in tears. I haven't heard from her since, and my daughter successfully graduated elementary. Then suddenly, I got a call from her. She said she wanted to celebrate our daughter's graduation, so I took my daughter to see her mother. My ex-wife had divorced her boyfriend and was working stably as a contract worker. She said she wanted to pay for our daughter's middle school uniform, but I told her, it's our right to spend money on our daughter. You gave up your right to do that when you gave her up. My daughter had already accepted my wife as her new mother and seemed awkward and didn't talk much when they met. When I asked later, she said,
I was excited to meet my mom at first, but I felt kind of guilty towards my new mom.
I felt bad for my daughter, but I couldn't forgive my ex-wife for what she had done, and didn't want to remind my daughter about it either. So all I could say was, I understand. But I can still remember the despair when I found out that my ex-wife was cheating on me, and lost my daughter on top of that. They were the saddest days of my life. And I won't forget how my girlfriend decided that she would be a mother for me. My ex-wife had neglected our child and spent all of her child support money on her boyfriend. But we came out on top. She may regret it heavily, but she was the one who gave up what she had, so she gets no sympathy from me.
I came home to my parents' house after school the other day, but there was a car that I'd never seen before, parked in front of our driveway. In the past, our neighbor had asked to borrow the spot when her friend was coming over, but I'd never seen the car before, and we hadn't heard anything from our neighbor in advance. My mother was out visiting my sister, so I went around to my neighbor's house to ask, but no one knew about it. One neighbor told me, "I saw it there before I left, so it's been there for at least 5 hours." I decided to ask a friend to tow it away for me because I had to park my car. To avoid trouble, I told a police officer that I trusted personally about it as well. There had been cases of people illegally leaving trash in the neighborhood recently, so the police and my friend responded quickly to tow the car away. The police officer told me to tell him as soon as the owner was found, but the owner of the car never arrived that day, or the next. Do they not need their car? Maybe it was an illegal disposal, I thought to myself. Finally, in the evening on day 3, when I was walking home from the grocery store with my mom, we saw a young-looking mother in our driveway, kicking my car. I immediately connected the dots, but I was shocked that she was kicking my car. "What are you doing to my car?" I asked. The mother had a furious look on her face. "Where's my car?" she started yelling. In my mind, I was annoyed. It's been 3 days after all, but I calmed myself down and asked her, "Is your car's license number REV1234? To which she replied, "Yeah, the white Tesla," as she got in my face. I had the police tow it away. "What the hell? It was just there for a little while. How dare you touch my car?" She started going crazy. She had one of those glow sticks like they use at concerts and started hitting my car with it. Apparently, she had been at some Idols concert nearby for 2 days straight. The glow stick snapped and the fluid got all over my car. While I was arguing with the lady, my mother called the tow truck driver and police, and they said that they would be there in about 20 minutes. While we were waiting, the lady's son peed his pants and they forced themselves into her house. While she was inside, she tried to steal a scroll that was decorated on her wall. I tried stopping her, but she was stronger than me. While I was struggling with her, a policeman finally arrived. Upon his arrival, the lady calmed down a bit. The officer told her that she was to pay the fees for the tow truck. "This bitch was the one who did it!" she argued back. The officer stepped in.
You should have expected something like this for leaving the car in someone else's driveway.
He told her, but she didn't seem convinced. She continued to shout and wail, so the officer called for backup. After a while, a bunch of police cars pulled up, and we were all surprised. We all sat there in shock as they arrested her. This seems kind of overboard for a parking violation, I thought to myself, but I was told that the lady had gotten into all kinds of trouble in a different city and had disappeared. Her parents also had a search warrant out for her. Apparently, her husband was nowhere to be found either, and the car was a stolen car. What a turn of events! What I thought was just a parking violation turned out to be a part of a bigger problem. The officer called backup once he realized who he was dealing with and was successfully able to arrest her. The lady was captured, but our car was still a mess. So we contacted a lawyer and held a discussion with the lady's parents and our lawyer. We thought that things would go smoothly from here on, but this was just the beginning of our next battle. At first, it was just the lady's mother. The father and their lawyer were to join us later. The father was picking up their lawyer before heading over, and while we were waiting on them, the mother said, "My daughter is going to go to jail if you don't retract your report. Caring for her child is going to cost us money. And plus, you'll be working soon anyways, so you'll have enough money to repair your car in no time." I sat there in awe, listening to her mindless words. Let's be clear, your daughter has caused a lot of trouble in other places as well, right? And she doesn't seem sorry about any of it. There's no way I'm not filing that report. And the fact that I'll be making money soon has nothing to do with the damages done to the car. She argued back, but we were going in circles. Things changed when the father arrived. The father that arrived was my teacher from high school. As soon as he saw me, he went pale. It was just a few years ago that I was his student. You know, as soon as he realized it was me, he went straight into apology mode. I'm not sure if he had a different plan before the discussion, but it must have caught him off guard to see one of his former students there. After all, it would only take me telling a few people before the whole school found out about the incident. If that were to happen, he could kiss his job goodbye. He proposed to move out of the city and pay for the car, compensation, and legal fees. His wife didn't seem happy at all. You could tell that she had no choice but to agree because her husband insisted. To avoid any further conflict, I also had them sign a restraining order. Later, we met the lady who was accompanied by her mother because she insisted to apologize directly. But instead, when she showed up, she yelled at me, "Why do I have to pay you compensation?" She seemed angry about the decision. I thought you were here to apologize. For some reason, her mother jumped in as well, and they destroyed our front gate, so I didn't hesitate to call the police. The only reason I agreed to meet the lady was because she was arrested before she apologized, but instead she caused havoc again, so I filed another damage report. I didn't want to cause my high school teacher any more trouble, but the lady and the mother just crossed the line. I didn't hate my teacher, but they destroyed our gate. With all her priors, the lady was definitely going to do time, which is better than all the damage she would potentially do out in the real world. She doesn't listen, she damaged my car, and she caused many more people trouble, so I figured that it was what she deserved. I felt bad for her child, but I think my teacher would be a better guardian than the lady, and there were others to help raise him too, so hopefully he'll be okay. The lady was imprisoned, and the boy was adopted by a nice couple who were good friends of my high school teacher. I'm glad that he got away from that lady or her mother. They were both unreasonable people. And I'm glad that my teacher had some sense. At least someone was normal. I bet my teacher wasn't that excited to see me though.
I was eating lunch at dinner with a German coworker one day. On the other side of the aisle was what seemed like a lady with her mother-in-law, 2-year-old daughter, and baby. The child sat in a child seat and was eating her food. The mother was taking care of her as she fed milk to her baby. The grandmother was chomping down on her food while nagging at her daughter-in-law. It was disgusting to watch as she was talking loudly with a mouthful of food. From the conversation, I picked up that the mother-in-law wanted a ride to her activities. She also wanted to show off her newborn grandchild to her friends. So, although the lady was busy because her husband was out of town, the mother-in-law had pretty much forced her to come along. The children were finally settled, and as the mother tried to start eating, the mother-in-law started nagging at her again.
I can't believe that you're trying to eat cold food. When I was a mother, I sacrificed all of my time to look after my mother-in-law and children.
When the mother would try to argue back, she would say,
I can't believe you're trying to talk back to me.
and wouldn't give her time to eat. She was just trying to eat a sandwich, for crying out loud. The lady wanted to eat spaghetti in the first place, but the grandma cut her off and made her order a sandwich because they're easier to eat. The grandmother proceeded to clean up and lift the child out of her seat to get ready to leave. My friend and I felt so bad for the lady, who had tears in her eyes, that we decided to make an attempt to help her out. Something really disturbing is happening over there. But is it normal in Japan to bully young mothers like that? Nah, that's an old and terrible tradition in Japan. The mother is bullying her daughter-in-law for stealing her son from her. Usually they at least try to hide that kind of shameful attitude in public. But some women get a sense of empowerment by showing it off in public. It just goes to show how screwed up that woman must be. I think most Japanese people would agree with me. That's a relief to hear that it isn't the norm. I almost thought that this country was screwed up for a second there. So it's just that old lady that's screwed up then. If she were to act like that in my country, she'd be sued for domestic violence. Plus, she keeps talking with food in her mouth. That's absolutely disgusting. She should be embarrassed to be showing her chewed up food like that. Don't they teach you guys in Japan not to talk with your mouth full? In our country, it's rude to slurp soup or noodles even. People would give you weird looks for having such bad manners. I guess it depends on the house. Maybe no one taught her any manners. Or maybe she was too busy bullying to notice. In Japan, when you can't even do the bare minimum, we tell you to start over from preschool. That's a good one. She's too old for preschool, so she should start over from an old person's home. Touché. Good point, man. We made sure she heard us. We could hear her bullying her daughter-in-law, so we were sure that she could hear us. The grandma was trembling as she stood there holding the child's hand. She came over to us, so my friend pretended like he couldn't speak English. Whoa! What is it? He speaks fluently, by the way.
You two, you don't understand at all. Blah, 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 blah.
She started rambling senselessly. She sat the child back in her seat and yelled
It's not my fault.
as she left the diner. We noticed that the mother seemed much happier as soon as she left. Sorry for causing a scene. We went over and apologized to the wife who was left behind. We found out that her husband worked at the same company as us. Not only that, but he was also a younger member in our same division. I didn't know you were his wife. Here, let me buy your lunch, as an apology for causing you trouble. My friend handed her the menu, and we'll watch your children so you can eat in peace. The wife ordered pasta with soup.
I haven't had a good meal in a while.
We heard her mumble as she was eating. We helped carry her things to her car and watched her leave. Normally, even if it was your husband's coworkers, a woman wouldn't be cared for like that by other men. It wasn't that the lady was insensitive. It just shows that she was so worn out to the point where she would trust anyone that seemed like an ally. When we got back to work, we found her husband after a meeting. So let me tell you what happened today. I explained to him what we witnessed today. He had no idea that we were talking about his wife and mother-in-law. My wife is great. We live together with my mother too. But I'm glad they get along. If I were that woman's husband, I would leave that house immediately, he said. My coworker just slapped the kid on the shoulder and said, Well, it's time to move then. Good luck. The kid seemed confused. So we talked to the lady afterwards, and guess what? It was your wife and mother. If you think we're lying, just ask your wife to see our business cards. We're just reporting to you exactly what we saw. If your mother and wife have different stories to tell, that'll be your decision to make. If this was my country, she would already be divorced from you. The kid went pale and started texting his wife. The following day, we spoke to him again. As you two pointed out, my mother was a bitch. Thanks for letting me know. He thanked us. It's true what he said about his mother, but the more important point was how worn out his wife seemed. Well, I guess the story was just pretty much how much of a bitch his mother was. The kid told us that he had plans to move out as soon as possible. He told us that his mother apologized to him for everything, but told her that he couldn't trust her anymore. He's going to keep the new address a secret, so she won't come to visit. The original reason for living with his mother was that she had bad legs and needed help to do certain chores and get around. She didn't have enough saved up to live off her pension and begged him to live with her. She had spent all of the money her husband had left her on trips, lessons, and taxi fares in less than 2 years. After the incident, she had no choice to live on her own.
I found a place I can stay with just my pension payment. I don't need you anymore.
She said, but the reviews online say that the retirement home that she lives in was terrible. His mother doesn't go online, so doesn't know about the reviews. You think she's okay? Well, I think she should experience some hardship to learn how it feels to be treated like crap. My wife told me that whenever I was gone, all she was allowed to eat was white rice with soy sauce. I'm sure she's being treated better than that. He told us. We were just trying to eat lunch that day. But by chance, it seems that we have changed the entire course of an old lady's life. But I guess what comes around goes around. It may have just been her fate.
We've been married 5 years. We were getting along fine, but we were having a hard time having a baby. So I told my wife that I thought that we should go see a doctor. But over time, my wife started acting strangely. At first, it was nothing that surprising, like locking her phone. But after that, I found a bunch of pills that I'd never seen before in her closet. I searched online and found out they were birth control pills. My wife knows that I wanted a child for a long time, and that I was depressed that we were having such a hard time, but all along she was taking birth control pills behind my back. No wonder she never got pregnant. Aside the fact that she was probably cheating, I felt a sense of emptiness and despair. But that just led me to suspect her more of cheating on me. The fact that she was taking birth control knowingly meant that there was some reason that made pregnancy inconvenient to her, like cheating. I kept searching for evidence and found that $6 million was missing from my bank account. That was money that I won in a lottery before getting married. I bought a house and a car for us, and the rest was being saved. My wife knew this, of course. I was saving up to spend the money on our future child, which she knew as well, but apparently she had different plans. She obviously didn't want a child with me. She also knew that it was money that I didn't plan to spend anytime soon, so it was perfect to steal from. That made me even more angry. I wanted to confront her immediately, but held back and hired a detective instead. I had them follow her for 2 months, and the amount of evidence was ridiculous. Every time she said she was coming home late from work, she had been going to a hotel with her boyfriend. Her boyfriend was riding a Ferrari and was getting a new house built, and I found out that all that money was the money stolen from my bank account. I was completely over my wife and pissed at the new boyfriend, so I quickly found a lawyer and had her begin preparing for our divorce. But rather than certifying the evidence, I first talked to both my parents and her parents about it. My mother had already passed away, so it was only my father, and he told me to do as I pleased. But her parents got on their knees and cried, begging for forgiveness. They said that they'd sell their own house and get a loan to return the money if they had to. I really liked my wife's parents, and they treated me like their real son, so I felt kind of bad, even though everything was my wife's fault. I have no plans of having either of you paying a cent. I want the two who are responsible to pay for what they did, I told them. To which her mother replied,
I didn't think she was such a fool. I'm calling all of our relatives and disowning her.
As she was screaming, her father said,
I heard that her new boyfriend is married as well. I think we owe his wife an apology too.
I didn't want the boyfriend's wife to think that I was joking, so I had my lawyer call her over to the office and show her the evidence. A few days later, she showed up and broke down crying after she saw all the evidence. I never thought that my wife would cheat on me, but it made me realize how destructive cheating is to all those around you. Her parents were torn, I was torn, and the wife was torn. But those two were still happily having their affair. There was no way that they would be forgiven for this. We decided that we would all break in together during one of their affairs. I gave them all a copy of the evidence, and we exchanged numbers. The two cheaters were getting bold, coming home late more often, and lying about business trips more often. After everything was set in motion, one day my wife told me,
I'll be home late tomorrow, so go to bed without me.
I knew what she was going to be up to, so I contacted my detective. The next day around 8 p.m., I got a call from my detective. They're in the hotel now. So I called my wife's parents, the boyfriend's wife, and our lawyer. I was the first to greet them on their way out. All right, you two, stop right there, I said. What do you want? The boyfriend said as they turned to face me. My wife's expression changed immediately as she crumbled over. The boyfriend didn't know who I was. Who are you? He asked. I'm the husband of that whore you've been busting inside of. Don't worry, your wife's here as well, so don't even think about running, I replied. He just stood there clueless. I took them to my lawyer's office in my detective's car. We went over the evidence and my demands before we called it a night. My wife stayed at the house that night, being watched by her sister, and I got a motel room for the night. The next day, the boyfriend confessed to everything. It was quite a shocking confession. He said that he's always dreamt of having a Ferrari. He had gotten a loan for the car, but pretended to pay it off with the money my wife had given him, and pocketed the rest instead.
I want a house to live in with you, but I don't have enough money. Let's buy a new car for ourselves. You have a right to spend half of your husband's money.
He had brainwashed her with nonsense like that. My wife, who lost her sense of judgment, forged my signature and stole my money to give to him. They had been in a relationship for almost a year now, and while I was gone on a business trip, they had even gone to Hawaii together, with my money, of course. I asked for a divorce and all of the money back, but my wife demanded her share.
What's the problem with me spending $6 million? I still deserve half of the couple of $1 million that you still have left in the bank.
She still believed that she deserved half of my money, so I had my lawyer explain to her, and you could watch as her expression changed. The boyfriend argued to the lawyers.
It was his wife that spent the money. I just accepted some gifts.
But of course, nonsense like that doesn't hold up in court. He ended up having to sell the Ferrari. His parents had to sell their house to pay the rest, but he was disowned after that. And all his relatives hate him for what he did to his parents. His company found out and fired him as well. He's going to have to look hard for a new job because he has to pay his wife compensation as well. But he lost his house. It's pretty hard to find a job without a set address. My wife got fired from work as well. She tried to stay at the house for a week even after the divorce, so her sister yelled at her, and she finally left. I was staying with my parents for a while. By the way, my wife's sister is strongly against cheating and hated my wife for doing such a thing. For about 2 years after that, she didn't pay what she owed me, and I couldn't get a hold of her. Until one day, when she came over to the house,
I worked hard for 2 years and have your money, so give me a second chance.
she said, handing me an envelope that had money inside. Where did you get this money? I asked.
I was a prostitute.
She said shamelessly, you didn't want to have a baby with me, and you stole $6 million from me while you were cheating with that guy. What reason would I have to start over with you? I'm already remarried and have a child anyways, I told her. She looked surprised. I pointed at our family photo, and my ex-wife looked angry.
What the hell?
She yelled. What do you mean? This is me, my wife, and our baby.
That's my sister!
Yeah, you're right.
That's unbelievable!
I couldn't care less what you think. Just stay away from me and my new family, I said, and she stormed off with a confused and angry expression on her face. I never saw her again. All I did was find my happiness, but I guess it was unexpectedly painful for my ex-wife. She seemed surprised that I was married to her sister, but honestly, so are we. At first, after everything that happened, I wasn't in touch with anyone in her family, and all their contact information was erased. A few weeks later, a girl that my friends introduced me to just so happened to be my ex-wife's sister. We were brothers and sister-in-law for a while, so I didn't pursue it at first, but I guess we were comfortable around each other and ended up dating. My wife was so unlike my ex-wife. I can't believe they are even related. I love my wife, and I'm so happy we were able to have a child that we both love. By the way, it was my parents-in-law that were the most surprised. I had left them on such bad terms after a long and great relationship, just to marry their other daughter and come back. They had already disowned my ex-wife, and they seemed a bit confused and happy at the same time, but they were delighted to meet their grandchild nonetheless. When I found out that my ex-wife was cheating on me, I never imagined a future like this, but all in all, I learned that life is just full of surprises.
I came home unexpectedly after my business trip was canceled one day. I caught my wife cheating on me red-handed. I wanted to surprise her that day and quietly snuck into the house. When I peeked inside, they were just finishing up. Even worse, the guy she was cheating on me with was my coworker. I was frozen in shock. I could hear my wife sweet-talking to my coworker.
Oh, don't stop.
I don't know how long they'd been going at it, but they were getting ready to go at it again. I accepted my defeat and decided to just set a camera and go back downstairs. I must have been confused. I just started mindlessly making dinner. I tried to play it cool, but I was probably extremely stressed out. I must have unconsciously tried to get my mind off of what was happening by moving my hands. I didn't know how long this had been going on, but I just continued to prepare dinner and finished eating. It had been about 3 hours since I came home, and I finally heard their footsteps coming down the stairs. They went straight to the bath, so I got the camera and set it towards the bath. I could hear them having fun.
Hey, what do you want to do for our anniversary?
Do you have any plans? I'd love to spend the night with you.
I've told that shithead I'll be at a class reunion that day, so it's fine if I come home late that night. I'll just tell him that I'll spend the night at a friend's house that night.
I guess they've been having the affair for 2 years already. They got out of the bath, and the guy was naked as he carried my wife like a princess into the living room. I guess they were planning on fooling around there. But that's when they saw me. They were so shocked that the guy dropped my wife. My wife was dropped so suddenly that she didn't have time to brace herself for the fall. She hit her hip really hard and was moaning in pain. My coworker got onto his knees and started apologizing. "I'm sorry, Jack. I can explain." What's there to explain? I thought to myself. All right then, take a seat. You must be tired after all that action. I sat them down and took their phones and wallets and left. I went to work and headed to the General Affairs Department and checked the guy's work shift. As expected, he had called in sick that day, so I changed it to say, cheating. The woman at the desk wanted to know what was going on. So I showed her the pictures and she accepted.
Could you give me a copy of that picture? Think of it like a doctor's note for a sick leave.
Her joke made me smile. After that, I decided to spend the night in one of the napping rooms at my work. I went out for dinner, and when I returned, I got a text from the guy. "Your wife is in the hospital." "Whatever. Why don't you go then?" "She had a miscarriage. Do you still not care?" "If she did, it's your fault for dropping her." "How can you say something like that? It's your child we're talking about." "How do I even know it's my child?" "Because she's your wife." That's almost funny coming from you after you cheated on that wife of mine. Oh, and by the way, I haven't slept with my wife in a while, so I'm pretty sure that it was your child. That's where the texts ended. I'm sorry, but I'm not the type of guy who can care about my wife after seeing all of that. I thought about blocking his number after that, but I had a better idea and decided to head to the hospital. As soon as I got there, I talked to the doctor in charge. "Could you test to see if that was my child?" The doctor looked surprised, but he agreed to it. After I gave him what he needed for the test, I left without seeing my wife. The next day, my wife's parents came over after hearing what happened. "What the hell is going on? You promised to take good care of our daughter!" Her father yelled at me, so I calmly told them, "I was taking great care of her, but I'm sorry to tell you that it was your daughter who was cheating on me. Also, let me tell you in advance that we hadn't been sleeping together for over 6 months." Their facial expressions changed. "What do you mean?" They looked confused, so I explained what happened. They didn't believe me at first, but I showed them the videos. In a few days, the DNA tests will show that in fact, the child was not mine. After hearing me out, my mother-in-law's attitude changed.
Please, forgive her. Give her another chance.
She wept as she begged for forgiveness. I could understand where they were coming from, but I told them that I couldn't forgive her. My mother-in-law became angry after I told her that, but I wasn't the one to blame. I had had enough. So I played the video of their daughter cheating on me on full blast. "You want me to just forgive her for this? You have no right to be mad at me!" And my in-laws became silent. "We're sorry." "I can't hear you." "We're sorry, all right?" "All right then. You guys can leave now. I'm the one who's in pain after being cheated on." 2 weeks later, my wife left the hospital. She was suffering after effects from the fall, and she was going to need rehab until she could properly walk again. So she attended the discussion in her wheelchair. I hired a lawyer and had my parents, my wife, her parents, and my coworker all come to the meeting. My wife was the first to speak.
I've been punished enough. Please forgive me, and please don't divorce me.
To which I responded, "What do you mean you've been punished? You want me to tell everyone how you ended up like that?" With everyone there, she couldn't fight back, and sat there and cried in silence. The boyfriend looked kind of pale too. Well, of course they didn't want me to explain how he had been carrying her like a princess without any clothes on, and dropped her when he ran into me. So I got a divorce with my wife. No alimony, no distribution of property. I charged $30,000 in consolation to the boyfriend. On top of that, I couldn't live in a house where I had caught them fooling around. So an additional $15,000 for the down payment and moving costs for my new place. I heard that the boyfriend got divorced after that too. He had to pay his wife $50,000 in alimony and got remarried to my wife to take responsibility for what he had done to her. As for work, the lady at General Affairs turned in the photos, and he got fired from work. I received consolation from both parties and got my divorce. I was off to a new start. After that, my ex-wife was into her second year in the wheelchair and got remarried to the guy she cheated on me with. But he had cheated on her as well. So she ended up getting divorced for the second time and started living with her parents. I'm not sure of her exact intentions, but around then, I received a bunch of texts from her asking for another chance. I thought about changing numbers after divorcing her, but with work and everything, I decided to keep using the same number. She misunderstood that as a sign that I still cared about her and sent me messages like,
I want to get back together with you. I need you. I'll be a good wife.
So I decided to just block her. After I broke up with her, I had met someone new. I was already remarried and had a 1-year-old child. My wife takes great care of me, and I love her very much. I did block my ex-wife, but knowing her, she might try to contact me with a different number. So I figured it would be a good time to change phones. I've put her way behind me already. It's completely her own fault that she can't walk right now. So I have no sympathy for her. And I'm 100% satisfied with my life right now.
A few years ago, I was working as a contract worker for an outsourcing company. It was a call center, but most of the inquiries were done through an online chat. And I was fast at typing, so I thought it was the perfect job for me. But when my time was done, they never renewed my contract and I was cut off. When I asked my agency, all they would tell me was that my contract was expired and never gave me a specific answer. But I knew that the division that I worked at was short on staff and that all the other contract workers' contracts were renewed if they wanted. Maybe they cut me off because of my ears. I was born with a hearing disability. At first, I just had bad hearing, and I could hear most things with a hearing aid. But after surgery, I completely lost hearing in one of my ears. It was quite depressing at the time, because the whole point of the surgery was to get my hearing back. I was too depressed to go out for a while. My other ear could hear a little, with help from the hearing aid, but I have to watch the other person's mouth carefully, especially if they talk fast or quietly. I had also given up on working, but when I signed up with my agency, I was lucky enough to find the job at the call center. I could manage the job as long as I had the hearing aid on, but maybe my boss had a hard time handling me. It was a hard pill to swallow, but this was reality. My agency also told me that they wouldn't be able to introduce me to a new job anytime soon. I guess under the same conditions, someone would choose to hire a worker who could hear properly. But it was a waste of time to be depressed about it, so I decided to start looking for another job. When I was thinking about jobs that someone with my condition could do, I thought of Uber Eats and decided to sign up. I figured that I could spend my time searching for job opportunities while delivering food. I downloaded the app and bought a delivery bag and was prepared to work. I wasn't sure exactly how much work would be available, but I got a notification right away and started to work. I had no problems for about a month. I used my free time to deliver food. I was able to connect with people, and delivering on bike was a lot less stressful than I thought. It was good exercise also. I'd been sitting in the office for so long, and I was really starting to enjoy the job. But then something happened. That day, I was on my way to a customer's house that I had delivered to many times before. I picked up a lunchbox that he had ordered for lunch and was riding my bike when I heard a whistle from behind. I stopped my bike and looked around when a young police officer on a bike approached me. Me?
You there! That's dangerous!
Me? What did I do?
That thing in your ear.
Oh, this? The officer was pointing at my hearing aid. I wasn't sure what he meant by them being dangerous.
Earphones are dangerous because they block the noises around you when you're riding your bike. Even just now, you didn't hear me call out to you until I blew my whistle, right?
He was right that I couldn't hear his voice because of all the other noises. No, you see, these are hearing aids, not earphones for music, sir, I responded. I even took them out and showed him. I thought I sensed a moment of clarity, but he doubled down.
Those aren't hearing aids. I know earphones when I see them. Take them out, miss.
Ugh. I sighed and searched online to show him information on the hearing aid that I was wearing. These are the same ones. Are you convinced now? I'm in a hurry. I knew I wasn't in the wrong and tried to go, but the cop didn't back down.
Take them off, I said. It'll confuse other people around you. It's not like you can't hear at all, right? And plus, what's the point if you couldn't hear me with them on anyways?
Oh my gosh. The hearing aid was absolutely necessary for me. Yeah, I could barely hear out of my left ear, but without my hearing aid, my right ear was pretty much deaf. If I were to take them out, I wouldn't be able to hear any noise from my right side, which would be extremely dangerous for me. Right then,
Oh, here you are.
I heard a familiar voice. The man that I was delivering to noticed that I was nearby and came to meet me at the intersection.
I noticed that you stopped moving nearby. Is something wrong?
So I explained the situation to him.
Do you know this lady? She refuses to remove her earphones and claims that they are hearing aids. It's a very dangerous thing to do, and I'm having a hard time convincing her. Do you want to help me convince her?
The officer was looking to the man for help, but this man knew me well from many past deliveries.
If you force her to take them out and she gets in an accident, how will you take responsibility for that, sir? It's the same thing as telling someone with bad eyesight to take their glasses off.
The officer seemed nervous.
Well, those are two different situations. No, they're not. It's illegal to force her to take them off. Huh? How would you know? I should have mentioned earlier that I'm a lawyer. What? I take illegal acts by law enforcement very seriously, sir.
They started going at it, and I felt bad because I felt like this whole situation was my fault. I was thinking about how to settle this situation when another police officer approached us on his bike. Apparently, this new officer was the younger officer's superior. He began explaining the situation to him. Oh no, what if they both start coming after me? I don't want to cause this man any more trouble. But my worries were short-lived. After the younger officer was finished explaining, the older officer came to me and apologized.
We're very sorry about everything.
He said and bowed down deeply.
Huh?
The younger officer seemed confused.
My mother was in a similar situation. After complying, she was hit by a car. This guy is still new and inexperienced. We'll be sure to educate him properly. Please forgive us today.
The younger officer listened to his superior's words and realized that he had gone too far.
I made a mistake. I'm very sorry, miss.
He gave me a sincere apology.
Well, what do you want to do?
The lawyer asked me. It's fine, as long as you understand now. Please be thoughtful from now on. Hearing disabilities may be hard to notice upon first sight, but for us, it's like going to war without guns if we don't have our hearing aids. After hearing me out, they said,
We're very sorry.
They apologized many times after that until we were out of sight. I was finally able to deliver the lunch to the lawyer after that.
You were lucky that the second officer was understanding, but if it weren't for him, things could have gotten pretty complicated back there. If you have any problems, you can talk to me, okay?
Thank you, sir. It's true that hearing aids have recently become more fashionable and do look like earphones. And maybe there are people who lie about their earphones being hearing aids. But still, it makes me angry to see cops who don't try to hear you out. Thankfully, the lawyer helped me out this time. But it scares me to think what could have happened if he wasn't there. I just hope that people learn about various disabilities and make an effort to be understanding of people like me.
One day I got a call from my son's school. They said he was in the hospital. He was playing soccer with a friend at school, and when they crashed, he fell and lost consciousness. I told my boss what happened, and I caught a taxi to hurry to the hospital. I called my wife along the way, who was out on a trip with her friends from the day before. Hey, Scott's in the hospital right now, and he isn't conscious. I'm on my way now. Can you make it back immediately?
I don't think I'll be able to make it back today.
I thought you were only a couple hours away,
Sorry, I gotta go. I'll call back later.
she said and hung up the phone. If my head was straight, I probably would have noticed that something was off, but I was so worried about my son that I didn't think too much about it. I rushed over to my son as soon as I arrived at the hospital. Are you his father? Your son isn't seriously injured, and his pulse is stable. He's just sleeping for now, so there isn't anything to worry about. Is he conscious? Yes, he's back with us now, and we were able to have a conversation earlier, but we'd like to keep him here for the night, just in case. Oh, thank God. Thank you, sir. As the doctor was leaving, another woman came in with a boy about the same age as Scott.
We're really sorry about what happened today.
It was the boy who crashed into my son and his mother. Don't worry about it. He's just sleeping for now, and he'll be okay.
Oh, thank God. I'd also like to apologize to your wife.
She's on a trip right now and won't be able to make it back today, but I'll let her know. Then the boy apologized. Sorry, he said, looking like he was ready to cry. It's okay, nothing to worry about. Are you hurt at all? I should apologize to your husband too.
Our boy is fine. He's just a little bruised. My husband is on a business trip out of town too, but he said he won't be able to make it back until tomorrow too.
Is that so?
Is it fine if we wait here with you guys until Scott wakes up?
Yes, of course. And they waited with me until Scott woke up. The mother kept text messaging her husband, but was complaining that he wouldn't read any of her messages. I glanced at her wallpaper and saw a nice family photo. You must get along great with your husband. I'm having a hard time right now, to be honest.
Not really. He's not home much. I think he's trying to avoid me. And when he is home, he invites his friends over all the time. I don't think he wants to be alone with me. And he always accuses me of flirting with his friends, even though he's the one that invites them. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be telling you all this.
Oh, it's fine. My wife invites her friends over all the time, too. I wonder what's up with that.
Oh, really? Oh, I just got a text. My husband should arrive at the nearest station in 10 minutes.
Is that so? I'm sorry for interrupting his business trip.
I'll go pick him up.
And she left the hospital. Just then, I got a phone call.
I had my friend rush back, so I'll be there in 30 minutes.
Oh, really? That's great! As I hung up the phone, Scott woke up. He still seemed a bit out of it, and he whispered, "Dad, look at my phone." And he went back to sleep. I wondered what he meant, but I opened up his phone and what I saw shocked me. 30 minutes later,
Is he okay?
my wife came running into the hospital room. Yeah, the doctor said he'll be fine.
Thank God.
Don't you think you should be worried about yourself?
Huh?
How was your trip?
What?
Yeah, your affair trip. My wife's face went pale.
What are you talking about?
I know everything about how you're cheating on me with Mrs. Lee's husband. You probably thought I was clueless, so you acted like you rushed to get here. But you guys just adjusted the timing so it wouldn't seem suspicious, right? That means Mr. Lee should be here any second now, right?
What? No. I gotta go to the bathroom. I have a stomach ache. We can talk about this afterwards.
She probably wanted time to text her boyfriend, but it was too late. The door opened up behind us. I'm so sorry about what happened. Are you Scott's mom? Nice to meet you. My wife seemed panicked. All the actors were here.
Hey, we know everything.
Mrs. Lee showed them her phone. Oh, that's... It was a picture of them at the train station walking hand in hand. When she went back to pick her husband up at the station, Mrs. Lee had seen them together. After taking a picture, she rushed back to the hospital to tell me.
Oh my gosh, he wasn't on a business trip?
She said. Well, your wife said her arm hurt, so I was just lending her a hand, right? How's your arm?
Oh, so much better. Thank you so much for your help back there.
Are we still playing this game? You guys are pathetic.
Yeah, I agree.
I have more proof, I said. Scott was fully awake by then. Show Mom that video. I said. Okay. It was a video of them in our bedroom having sex.
Oh, no, stop!
No way!
Oh, I can't take it anymore. Stop!
Shut up! This man is always being mean to Mom. I showed Dad what I recorded because I wanted him to help, but he always comes home so late, after I'm asleep. So I never had the chance.
No.
What do you mean, no? This is what you're doing at home with our son there, while I'm working? You should be ashamed of yourself. I found out later that she was trying to set me up with one of her friends so that I would cheat on her, so she could use that against me to get a divorce and alimony. Then, she was going to take that money and start a new life with Mr. Lee. There were hidden cameras set up in the house and everything. Mr. Lee was trying to accuse his wife of flirting with his guy friends and divorce her on the grounds of broken trust. Even worse, after they got the phone call from us, they continued to relax in the hot springs for a while before heading back. They wanted to enjoy their luxurious trip together that much.
I had my lawyer help me with the divorce, and I was able to get a full one-time payment for child support and alimony.
Mrs. Lee told me. My wife tried to fight the divorce at first, but she had no chance and signed to pay alimony. Both Mrs. Lee and I were able to receive large sums of alimony. My son is fully recovered and lives a normal life now. When I'm busy, Mrs. Lee watches over the children for me and helps around the house for me. By the way, those two were able to get married the next year, but their empty relationship was pretty much already done by then. And the husband ended up cheating again just to get caught by his new girlfriend's husband again and be charged another heft amount in alimony. He ended up being chased around by debt collectors and caused his company trouble, which he got fired for. My wife always hated work, but had to work to help pay off her new husband's debt. He wouldn't agree to a divorce, so they're both moving from house to house being chased by debt collectors and working part-time jobs to sustain their miserable life.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.